The snowstorm had not relented for 3 days. It swept across the New Mexico plains with the kind of fury that made men pray and animals hide. The wind howled through canyons and over hills, erasing roads and landmarks, turning the world into an endless, white void. In this whiteness, 3 figures moved like shadows: a woman, 2 children, walking. The camera would find them like this: the woman on her knees in the snow, her fingers the color of old copper trembling as they reached for something small and pale against the white ground. A kernel of corn. Just one. She picked it up, brushed the ice from its surface, and placed it carefully in her palm. Then she found another, and another. Behind her, 2 children huddled together beneath a blanket too thin for this weather. The boy was perhaps 9 years old, his dark eyes watching his mother with an intensity that belonged to someone much older. The girl, younger, maybe 6, pressed against his side. Her lips had started to turn blue. The woman gathered 7 kernels of corn from the snow, 7 small pieces of survival that had spilled from her pack when she fell an hour earlier. She stood slowly, her body protesting the movement, and turned to her children. The boy pushed her hand away when she tried to give him the corn. No words, just a shake of his head. She tried again. He pushed harder. "Mother, you eat," he said. Finally, his voice a mix of Apache and broken English learned from his father, who was gone. The woman looked at her son, really looked at him, saw the man he was trying to become in a body still too small, saw the fear he refused to show, saw the way he held his sister, shielding her from the wind with his own thin frame. She shook her head and placed the kernels in his hand, closed his fingers around them. Then she turned away before he could argue, scanning the horizon through the driving snow. There, in the distance, a light. Not the false light of hope or fever dreams, an actual light. Oil lamp glow from a window, the outline of a structure, a ranch house perhaps a mile away across the frozen ground. The woman stared at that light for a long time. Her name was Naira. It meant big eyes in the language of her people, and now those eyes held a calculation that had nothing to do with hope and everything to do with mathematics. The math of survival. How many steps could she take before her legs gave out? How long before the little one stopped shivering? How many hours until the cold became permanent? She had been running for 6 weeks, running from the soldiers who had burned her village, running from the men who offered salvation in the form of a reservation where her people were dying slowly instead of quickly. Running from everything except the responsibility of 2 lives that depended on her. Running had kept them alive. But running was no longer enough. Naira turned back to her children. Cale, her son, had given the corn to his sister. The little girl, Dina, held the kernels in her small fist, but did not eat. She was waiting. Children learned to wait when food was scarce. "We walk," Naira said. Cale stood pulling Dina up with him. He did not ask where. He had stopped asking questions like that weeks ago. They moved toward the light. The walk took forever, and no time at all. Time had stopped meaning anything beyond the next step, the next breath. Naira focused on the light, using it like a rope to pull herself forward. Behind her, she heard Cale's breathing steady and determined. She heard Dina's softer sounds, little gasps when the wind hit too hard. The ranch house grew larger. Details emerged from the storm, a solid structure well maintained, fence posts marching away into the darkness, the smell of wood smoke faint but real, signs of life, signs of survival. Naira stopped 50 feet from the house. From here she could see through the window. A single room lit by lamplight, a table, a stove, and a man. He sat alone at the table eating his dinner. No one else visible, no voices carrying through the walls, just one man methodical in his movements, eating without pleasure or haste. When he finished, he stood, carried his plate to a basin and washed it. Then he walked to the stove and began banking the fire for the night. Naira watched all of this, studied him, not just what he did, but how he did it. The way he moved spoke of routine of days that repeated without variation. The way he paused sometimes halfway through a gesture, as if listening to something only he could hear, spoke of loneliness. Lonely men were unpredictable. They could be kind or cruel, generous or paranoid. Everything depended on what their loneliness had taught them. She waited until he extinguished the lamp, waited until the house fell into darkness except for the faint glow of banked coals through the window. Then she approached. Her knock was firm, not timid, not aggressive, just firm. Inside movement, footsteps, the sound of something metal being picked up and set down again, a weapon considered and rejected. The door opened. The man who stood there was tall, maybe 6 feet, somewhere in his middle 30s, with the kind of weathered face that came from years of sun and wind. His hair was dark, going gray at the temples. His eyes were careful. Those eyes traveled from Naira to the children behind her, back to Naira. He did not look surprised. He did not look afraid. He looked tired. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Naira said, "I work, I fix, I cook, I tend animals, food and shelter until spring. Then I go." Her English was good, better than most would expect from an Apache woman. She watched his reaction to this, saw the small flicker of surprise quickly masked. The man looked at her children again, looked at the snow falling behind them, looked back at Naira. "Why not the reservation?" he asked. His voice was quiet, rough from disuse. "Because there my children die slow instead of fast. Their bodies live, their spirits do not." Something changed in the man's eyes, not pity, something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. He stepped aside. "Come in." Naira did not move immediately. She had learned caution. "You feed us tonight?" she asked. "Yes." "You give us place to sleep?" "Yes." "And tomorrow we talk." It was not a promise, but it was not a rejection either. Naira gestured to her children. They moved past her into the warmth. She followed, and the man closed the door against the storm. The inside of the house was plain, but clean. One main room with a stove, a table, a few chairs, 2 doors leading to other rooms. Everything organized with the precision of a military man or someone who needed order to function. The man moved to the stove, stirred the coals back to life, and began preparing food. Not asking, not discussing, just doing. Naira stood near the door with her children watching. Kael's hand had moved to something beneath his shirt, a knife probably, small but sharp enough. The man noticed but said nothing. He put together a simple meal, bread, butter, dried meat, coffee. He set it on the table and stepped back, giving them space. "Eat," he said. Then he pointed to a door. "Storage room through there. I will bring blankets." He left them alone. Naira moved to the table. The food was real. The warmth was real. She touched the bread to be certain, then broke off a piece and gave it to Dina, then to Kael. Only after they had eaten did she take some for herself. It tasted like salvation and shame mixed together. The man returned with blankets and a mattress tick filled with straw. He set them down near the storage room door. "You sleep here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we talk about work." Naira nodded. The man walked to one of the other doors, paused, then went to a cabinet and removed something. A rifle. He took it with him into his room. The door closed but did not lock. Naira understood. Trust but verify. She would do the same. She settled her children in the storage room. It was small but warm enough, protected from the wind. Dina fell asleep almost immediately, her little body finally able to stop fighting. Kael stayed awake longer, his eyes on the door, his hand still near his knife. "Sleep," Naira told him softly in Apache. "I watch." "I should watch," Kael whispered back. "I am the man now." Naira touched his face. "You are 9 years old. Let me be the mother a little longer." Kael's eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. Finally he nodded and closed them. Naira sat against the wall, listening to the house settle, listening to the wind outside, listening to the sound of a man in the next room who was not sleeping either. She thought about her husband, Takota. Thought about how he had laughed once before the world became hard. Thought about how he had died slowly from a sickness that ate him from the inside while she could do nothing but watch. She thought about the weeks of running, the cold, the hunger, the constant fear. She thought about this moment sitting in a stranger's house, warm and fed and uncertain. And she thought about what she might have to become to keep her children alive. In his room, Warren Hale sat on the edge of his bed, rifle across his knees, staring at nothing. He had not expected this, had not expected to open his door and find the past staring back at him. An Apache woman, 2 children, asking for help, just like before. 4 years ago, almost to the day. Another storm, another knock on his door. Warren closed his eyes, but the memory came anyway. A man, a woman, a child of maybe 5 years old. Apache. Fleeing something, though Warren never learned what. They had asked for shelter just for one night, just until the storm passed. Warren had been different then, newer to this isolation, still angry at the world, still convinced that any involvement meant danger. He had said no, not cruelly, not with hatred, just no. He could not help. He gave them some food and sent them away. He told himself it was the right decision, the safe decision. He could not risk harboring fugitives, could not risk bringing trouble to his door. The storm had worsened through the night. In the morning, Warren had found them 3 miles away. They had tried to reach the next ranch, but did not make it. The cold had taken them all. The man died first, probably. Then, the woman curled around her child. Then the child wrapped in arms that could no longer give warmth. Warren had buried them. 3 graves in frozen ground. Markers with no names because he did not know their names. He had burned sage over the graves the way he had seen Apache do once during his time in the territory militia. He did not know if he was doing it right. He only knew he had to do something. After that, he sold everything in town that connected him to other people. He stopped going to church, stopped trading at the general store unless absolutely necessary. He made this ranch into a fortress of solitude where he would never have to make that choice again. And for 4 years it had worked. Until tonight. Until an Apache woman with big dark eyes and 2 children stood at his door asking for the same thing he had denied before. Warren looked at the rifle in his hands. He had picked it up out of habit, out of the training that said trust no one. But he had not loaded it, had not even thought to load it. Because some part of him, some part he did not want to examine too closely, had already made the decision. He would not fail again. Whatever it cost him, whatever trouble it brought, he would not send them away. Warren set the rifle aside and lay back on the bed. He did not sleep. He listened to the wind and the silence and the small sounds of breathing from the storage room. In the morning, he would face what he had chosen. But for tonight, 3 people were alive who might not have been. It would have to be enough. Warren woke before dawn. He had not slept, not really just drifted in and out of a restless half-consciousness where memories and present reality blurred together. When the first gray light began to filter through his window, he gave up the pretense and rose. The house was cold. He moved quietly to the main room, intending to start the fire before his guests woke. But the fire was already burning, and there was food on his table. Warren stopped staring. Cornmeal mush, simple but prepared well. Coffee brewing on the stove. The smell of something he could not quite identify, some kind of herb, mixed with the coffee grounds. The storage room door was open. Empty. He found Naira outside. She was in the barn working with his mare, the one that had been limping for 3 days. Warren had noticed the swelling in the right front leg, but had been waiting to see if it would resolve on its own before calling for the veterinarian in town. Naira knelt beside the horse, her hands gentle on the injured leg. She had made a poultice from something plants she must have gathered even in the snow. The mare stood quiet, head lowered, accepting the treatment. Warren watched from the doorway. Naira did not turn, but she knew he was there. 3 days, she said, maybe 4. The swelling started small. You thought it would heal. How did you know? I look, I see. She finished wrapping the poultice in a strip of cloth, securing it carefully. She will be better in 2 days. What did you use? Plants. Some I brought. Some I found near your wood pile. She stood stroking the mare's neck. You take good care of her, but sometimes good care is not enough. Sometimes you need knowledge. It was not a boast, just a statement of fact. Warren stepped into the barn. In the better light he could see details he had missed last night. Naira was younger than he had first thought, maybe late 20s. Her hands showed the kind of capability that came from a lifetime of work. Her eyes missed nothing. "The boy?" Warren said. "Where is he?" "Watching." From the loft. She glanced up. "He does not trust you yet." Warren followed her gaze and found Cale crouched among the hay bales, partially hidden, his dark eyes fixed on Warren with an intensity that was unsettling in someone so young. "I would not trust me either," Warren said quietly. Naira looked at him sharply, as if hearing something beneath the words. "The little one?" Warren asked. "Still sleeping. She was sick in the night. Fever. But it broke. You should have woken me." "Why?" "So you could watch me care for my child." There was no anger in her voice, just a statement of capability. "I have done this many times." Warren nodded. "The food. You did not need to do that." "I told you. I work. I do not take charity. I have not agreed to let you stay." Naira turned to face him fully. "Then we will eat breakfast. You will tell us to leave. We will leave. But I do not eat food I did not earn." The logic was unassailable. Warren found himself almost smiling. Almost. "What can you do?" he asked. "Besides heal horses and cook." "I can mend. I can build. I can shoot if needed, though I have no gun. I can track. I can find water and food where others see nothing." She paused. "I can work harder than any man you could hire from town. And I will not steal. I will not lie. I will do what I say." "Why should I believe that?" "Because I have nothing left except my word. When you have nothing, your word is everything." Warren studied her, saw the truth of it in her face. "What do you want?" he asked. "Food, shelter, safety for my children until spring. When the snow melts, we go. You never see us again. Where will you go? That is not your concern. If I am harboring you, it becomes my concern." Naira's eyes flashed. "You are not harboring. You are trading. My work for your food. This is business, not charity, not rescue." The law might see it differently. The law sees me as Apache. The law has already decided what I am. Nothing I do will change that. She stepped closer. "But you are not the law. You are a man with a ranch and no help, and a lame horse you did not know how to fix. I am a woman with skills and children to feed and nowhere else to go. We can help each other. Or we can part now. You choose." Warren looked at her. Really looked. Saw the pride that kept her spine straight despite exhaustion. Saw the intelligence that calculated every word before speaking. Saw the desperation she was trying so hard to hide. He saw what he should have seen 4 years ago. A person, not a threat, not a problem, just a person trying to survive. "You can stay," he said, "through the winter. You work. I provide food, shelter, safety. When spring comes, you decide what happens next." Naira's face did not change, but something in her eyes shifted. "I decide, you decide." She nodded once. "Then we have agreement." No handshake, no ceremony. Just acknowledgement between two people who understood the weight of words. Warren turned to leave, then paused. "The boy. Tell him he can come down. And tell him he does not need the knife. Not here." "How did you know about the knife?" "Because if I were him, I would have one too." The days that followed established a rhythm. Naira worked. She worked with the kind of focused intensity that came from knowing every moment of usefulness mattered. She repaired fence posts Warren had been meaning to fix for months. She organized his storage room, finding things he had forgotten he owned. She cooked meals that stretched his supplies further than he had thought possible. She did not speak unless spoken to. She did not ask for anything beyond what they had agreed. Cale helped his mother learning the ranch work with quick intelligence, but he never spoke to Warren. never met his eyes directly, and every night he slept with that knife within reach. Dina was different. The little girl watched Warren with curiosity rather than fear. Sometimes she would draw pictures in the dirt near the barn, strange symbols and shapes that might have been Apache writing or might have been just a child's imagination. Warren gave them space. He had learned over 4 years of solitude that silence could be a kindness. But he watched. He watched Naira check on her children every hour, even when they were sleeping. He watched the way she rationed her own food, always feeding them first. He watched the way she positioned herself between them and any potential danger, even danger as small as a creaking door or sudden noise. He recognized the behavior. He had seen it in animals protecting their young. He had also seen it in people who had learned that the world was not safe. 2 weeks passed. The ranch ran better than it had in years. The animals were healthier. The buildings were sounder. Even the small cabin began to feel less like a prison and more like a place where people actually lived. Warren found himself looking forward to meals, not because the food was better, though it was, but because there were people at his table. Voices, even if they were quiet. The sound of a child laughing when Dina found something amusing. Human sounds. He had not realized how much he missed them. Then came the night Dina got sick. Warren woke to the sound of singing, soft, low, in a language he did not understand. He lay in his bed listening, trying to place the melody. Then he remembered. 4 years ago, the family he had turned away. As they left, the woman had been singing to comfort her child. The same melody, the exact same melody. Warren's blood went cold. He rose dressed and went to the storage room, knocked softly. Naira opened the door. Her face was drawn with exhaustion. Behind her, Dina lay on the mattress, her small body racked with shivers, despite the blankets piled on top of her. "How long?" Warren asked. "Since midnight. 4 hours." Naira had been awake for 4 hours, tending her sick child alone. Warren turned without a word and went to his room. He returned with a bottle. "Whiskey," he said. "Mix it with warm water. Make her drink it. It will help the fever." Naira took the bottle, surprise flickering across her face. Why help? Warren met her eyes. "Because I did not help before, and I will not make that mistake again." He left before she could ask what he meant, but he did not go back to bed. He sat in the main room, stoking the fire, keeping water hot for whatever Naira might need, listening to the soft sounds from the storage room, the singing, the whispered words of comfort, the melody that haunted him. As dawn approached, Dina's fever broke. Warren heard the change in Naira's voice, the relief. He finally allowed himself to close his eyes. The next day, Naira brought Dina out to sit in the weak winter sunlight. The little girl was pale but smiling, wrapped in blankets, drawing her pictures in the dirt. Naira approached Warren where he worked on a broken wagon wheel. "Thank you," she said, "for the medicine. It was just whiskey. It was help when you did not have to give it." She paused. "The family you mentioned before, when you said you did not help, they were Apache." Warren's hand stilled on the wheel. "Yes." "What happened to them?" He could have lied, could have deflected, but something about the directness of her question demanded honesty. "They died. In the snow, after I turned them away." Naira was silent for a long moment. "How long ago?" 4 years, almost exactly. "And you have lived with that since?" It was not a question. "Yes." "Is that why you let us stay? Because of guilt?" Warren looked at her. "Partly." "I do not want your guilt," Naira said flatly. "I want your respect. If you help us because you feel sorry, that is charity. I do not need charity." "It is not just guilt," Warren said quietly. "It is also choice. 4 years ago, I chose safety over compassion. I chose to protect myself instead of helping people who needed it. That choice has haunted me every day since." He met her eyes. "This time, I chose differently. Not because of guilt, because I am trying to be a different man than I was." Naira studied him for a long time. Then she nodded. That I can accept. She returned to her daughter. Warren went back to his work, but his mind was elsewhere. That night, after the children were asleep, Warren could not settle. He went outside, stood on the porch, stared at the stars. He heard the door open behind him. Footsteps. Naira joined him, keeping a respectful distance. They stood in silence for several minutes. Then Naira said, "The family, the ones who died. Did they have names? I do not know. I never asked." "Was there a child? A boy maybe 5 years old?" Warren turned to look at her. "Yes. How did you know?" "Because my husband's family lost someone 4 years ago, a cousin, his wife, their son. They went looking for help during a storm. They never came back." The world seemed to tilt. "Your husband," Warren said slowly. "What was his name?" "Dakota." The same name. The exact same name as what he had heard someone call out months later when he had asked around carefully, trying to learn who the family had been. But Naira was shaking her head. "Not the same man," she said. "My Dakota died from sickness. In our camp, I was with him." She looked at Warren. "But he told me once about his cousin, also named Dakota, also married, also with a young son." "I do not understand." "Dakota is a common name, friend to everyone. Many boys are given this name." She paused. "But if the family you turned away was my husband's cousin, then you did not just fail strangers. You failed my family." Warren felt something cold settle in his stomach. "I did not know." "I know. How could you?" Naira's voice was quiet. "But now you do know. And knowing you still let us stay. You still helped my daughter. You still choose to be different. Does it matter that it was your family?" "No," Naira said after a moment. "Because wrong is wrong whether the dead are related to me or strangers. You understand that? That is why you cannot sleep. That is why you live alone. That is why you helped us." She turned to go inside, then paused. "My husband, before he died, he told me something. He said the hardest thing in life is not making the right choice. It is making the wrong choice and then choosing to live differently afterward. Most people cannot do that. They make one mistake and then spend the rest of their lives justifying it." "What are you saying?" "I am saying you are not most people. You made a wrong choice. And then you spent 4 years trying to become someone who would make a different choice." She met his eyes. "That is not weakness. That is strength." She went inside. Warren stood alone on the porch for a long time. Later, unable to sleep, he went to the storage shed behind the house. He kept his personal things there, the few items he had not sold or given away during his self-imposed exile. At the bottom of an old trunk wrapped in cloth was a photograph. Warren had taken it 6 months after the family died. He had managed to track down someone who knew them who had a picture. The man had given it to Warren, perhaps sensing his need for something concrete to carry his guilt. The photograph showed 3 people, a man strong and proud, a woman with kind eyes, a child between them grinning at the camera. Warren had kept this photo hidden, taking it out only on the anniversary of their deaths, a private ritual of remembrance and shame. He looked at it now in the lamplight. Then he walked outside to the fire pit where he burned trash. He struck a match. The photograph caught flame, curled, turned to ash. Not forgetting, never forgetting, but releasing. He watched until every trace was gone. Then he went back inside. In the storage room, Naira sat awake, watching her children sleep. She had seen Warren through the window, had seen him burn something. She did not know what it was, but she understood the gesture. Some things needed to be released before you could move forward. She lay down beside her children, closed her eyes, and for the first time in many weeks, she slept without fear. In his room, Warren finally slept as well. The past was not erased. It would never be erased. But perhaps it could be transformed into something else. Perhaps it could become the foundation for different choices. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but the storm was beginning to break. And in a small ranch house in the middle of nowhere, 4 people who had been running from different things found something they had not expected. A moment of peace, a chance to rest, a possibility of something more. The winter was not over. There would be more challenges ahead, more tests, more moments when the easy choice and the right choice would diverge. But for now, on this night, under these stars, in this moment of fragile truce between past and present, there was enough. There was warmth. There was safety. There was the quiet sound of breathing. There was life continuing. And sometimes that was all redemption needed to begin. 3 weeks passed, like pages turning in a book written in silence. The snow continued to fall, but less violently now, the kind of snow that blanketed rather than attacked, that muffled sound rather than screaming through it. The kind of snow that made the world feel smaller, more intimate, as if the ranch existed in its own separate reality where the normal rules did not quite apply. Warren woke each morning to find work already begun. Naira rose before dawn, moving through tasks with the efficiency of someone who understood that idleness was a luxury she could not afford. She repaired fence posts that had been leaning since the previous spring, using techniques Warren had never seen, but that held stronger than his own work. She patched the barn roof where shingles had blown away, climbing up there despite the ice, moving with a sureness that made him hold his breath watching from below. She worked the way some people prayed, completely, without reservation. Warren found himself adjusting his own routines to match hers, not consciously at first, just gravitating toward wherever she was working, offering help that was sometimes accepted and sometimes politely refused, learning when his presence was useful and when it was simply presence. Kyle worked alongside his mother, learning the ranch the way children learn a new language, through immersion, through watching and copying and gradual understanding. The boy had stopped sleeping with the knife under his pillow, Warren noticed, or perhaps he had simply gotten better at hiding it. But there was progress, small things, the way Kyle would nod at Warren in the mornings now, the way he no longer positioned himself between Warren and his mother at meals, the way he had started asking questions quietly about how things worked. "Why do you check the horse's hooves every day?" Kale asked one morning in the barn. Warren looked up from the mare he was tending, surprised by the direct question. "Because small problems become big problems if you ignore them. A stone in a hoof can lame a horse if left too long." Kale absorbed this, nodding slowly. "Like people." "What do you mean?" "Small wounds. If you ignore them, they get bigger." Warren met the boy's eyes, saw understanding there that went beyond horses and hooves. "Yes, exactly like that." The reading lessons began by accident. Warren kept a few books in his house, not many. The Bible, which he had not opened in years, a farmer's almanac, a collection of poems someone had given him long ago. He had been looking through the almanac one evening, checking planting dates he would not need for months when Cale had drifted closer. The boy stared at the pages with an expression Warren recognized. Hunger, the kind of hunger that had nothing to do with food. "Can you read?" Warren asked. Cale shook his head, shame flickering across his face. "Would you like to learn?" The boy's eyes widened, then narrowed with suspicion. "Why would you teach me? Because you want to learn. That is reason enough." Kyle looked at his mother. Naira, working on mending by the firelight, gave the smallest nod. The lessons were clumsy at first. Warren was no teacher, and Cale was defensive about every mistake, as if each wrong answer confirmed some deep inadequacy. But gradually, letter by letter, word by word, something began to build. 1 week became 2, 2 became 3. Dina, fully recovered from her fever, began to emerge from the shy silence she had maintained since their arrival. She did not speak much, but she watched everything with bright, curious eyes. And she drew. Warren had given her some charcoal from the fire and a smooth plank of wood. She had looked at these gifts as if they were treasures, then immediately begun creating. Strange symbols that might have been Apache writing, animals rendered with surprising accuracy, and people. Always people. She drew her mother working, drew Cale reading, drew Warren with his horses. In her pictures, they looked like a family. Warren tried not to notice this. tried not to let himself think about what it meant that this strange arrangement had begun to feel normal, that coming home to voices and cooking smells and the sound of a child humming had stopped feeling like an intrusion and started feeling like how things should be. They ate together now, breakfast, dinner, sometimes lunch, if the weather kept them all inside. Naira no longer asked permission to use his supplies. She simply prepared food and set it on the table, and Warren sat down and ate it, and they did not discuss the economics of the exchange because they both understood it had become something more than a transaction. Still, they spoke little during these meals. Comfortable silence had replaced awkward silence, but it was silence nonetheless, until the day Ruth Calloway arrived. Warren was in the barn when he heard the sound of a horse approaching. He stepped outside, shading his eyes against the glare of sun on snow, and recognized his neighbor's sturdy mare. Ruth Calloway was a widow of perhaps 55, strong and weathered and practical. Her husband had died 7 years earlier, leaving her a ranch that she ran herself with occasional help from hired hands. She and Warren had an understanding. They left each other alone mostly, but would help in emergencies. Lending tools, warning about wolves or cattle thieves, the bare minimum of neighboring. Ruth dismounted, tied her horse, and walked toward Warren with the purposeful stride of someone on a mission. "Warren," she said by way of greeting. "Ruth, everything all right? Need to borrow your plow horse. Mine threw a shoe, and I need to clear some snow before it freezes solid." "Of course. He is in the back paddock." Ruth started toward the barn, then stopped. Naira had emerged from the chicken coop carrying a basket of eggs. She wore one of Warren's old coats against the cold too large for her frame. Her dark hair was pulled back with a strip of leather. She looked up at Ruth and went very still. The two women regarded each other across 20 feet of snow. Ruth's face cycled through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, recognition of what Naira must be, calculation, something that might have been disapproval or might have been simple shock. "Warren," Ruth said slowly, not taking her eyes off Naira. "Who is this?" Warren moved to stand between them, not protectively, but as a bridge. "This is Naira. She works here, temporarily." "Works," Ruth repeated. The word carried weight. "Yes, through the winter." Ruth finally looked at Warren. Her eyes were hard to read. "Does anyone else know?" "No reason they should. It is my ranch, my business. Your business that involves an Apache woman and children." Ruth glanced toward the house, where Cale had appeared in the doorway watching. "People will talk, Warren. Let them talk." "It is not just talk I am worried about." Ruth's voice dropped lower. "There is sentiment in town against the Apache. Some families lost people in the raids last year. There is anger. If they knew you were harboring, I am not harboring anyone. I am employing someone. There is a difference. The law might not see it that way, and the people who make the law are the same ones who lost family." Naira had not moved during this exchange. She stood frozen, the basket of eggs held before her like a shield. Warren could see her calculating, measuring the threat, preparing to run if necessary. He could not let that happen. "Ruth," Warren said quietly, "I appreciate the warning, but my decision is made." Ruth studied him for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You always were stubborn, Warren Hale, even when we were young." She glanced at Naira again. "Be careful, both of you. Kindness is not always rewarded in this territory." She collected the plow horse and left without another word. Warren turned to find Naira, still standing by the chicken coop, her face unreadable. "I should go," she said. "No. I am making trouble for you. No more trouble than I can handle. You say that now, but if people come, if there is danger to you because of us." She shook her head. "I cannot let my children be the reason another person suffers." Warren walked to her, stopped a respectful distance away. "Do you want to leave?" "What I want does not matter. What is safe matters." "That is not what I asked." Naira met his eyes. "No, I do not want to leave. For the first time in months, my children sleep without fear. For the first time since my husband died, I do not wake up calculating how many days until we starve. This place is the first place that has felt like—" She stopped herself. "Like what?" "Like we could stay," she finished quietly. "Then stay. Even if it brings trouble. I have been avoiding trouble for 4 years. It has not made me happy. It has not made me good. Maybe it is time I stopped avoiding." Naira looked at him for a long time. "You are an unusual man, Warren Hale, different from others I have known. I will take that as a compliment." She almost smiled. Almost. Then she gathered her eggs and went inside. Warren stood in the snow watching the tracks Ruth's horse had left already beginning to fill with fresh powder. Trouble was coming. He could feel it the way animals feel storms before they arrive. But for the first time in years, he did not feel the urge to run from it. That night, Warren could not sleep. He sat in the main room, supposedly reading by lamplight, but actually just staring at the same page for an hour. His mind kept circling back to Ruth's warning, to the reality of what he had invited into his life, to the potential consequences. He heard the door to the storage room open. Soft footsteps. Cale appeared wrapped in a blanket, his eyes red. "Cannot sleep?" Warren asked. The boy shook his head. "Bad dreams?" A nod. Warren set his book aside and gestured to the chair across from him. Cale hesitated, then sat. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Cale said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I dreamed about my father." "What did you dream?" "He told me I have to be strong, that I am the man now, that I have to protect Mother and Dina." Cale's hands clenched in the blanket. "But I am not strong. I am scared all the time." Warren leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your father told you to be strong." "Yes, before he died. He said it many times." "Did he tell you what being strong means?" Cale looked confused. "Not being afraid." "No," Warren said gently. "That is not what it means. Being strong is not about never feeling afraid. Being strong is feeling afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway." "But I am always afraid." "So am I." Cale's eyes widened. "You are afraid every day." Of what? Warren considered lying, considered giving some easy answer about wolves or weather or failing crops. But this boy deserved truth. "I am afraid of failing again," Warren said. "I am afraid of making the wrong choice. I am afraid that everything I do to try to be better is not enough." "But you are not afraid of us, of having us here." "I am terrified of having you here," Warren admitted. "Terrified that something will happen to you because of me. Terrified that I will let you down the way I have let others down." He met Cale's eyes. "But I am more terrified of sending you away and living with that choice. So I choose the fear I can live with." Cale absorbed this slowly. "Is that what being a man is? Choosing which fear to live with?" "Part of it, yes." "What is the other part? Admitting when you are scared. Asking for help when you need it. Knowing that being strong does not mean being alone." The boy was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I wish my father had told me that. Maybe he did not know. Maybe no one told him." "Did someone tell you?" Warren shook his head. "No, I had to learn it the hard way. By being alone for so long that I forgot how to be anything else. Until you and your mother and sister showed up and reminded me." Cale looked toward the storage room where his family slept. "Are you glad we came?" The question hung in the air like snow waiting to fall. Warren thought about the easy lie, the polite deflection. Then he thought about everything this boy had already survived, all the ways the world had forced him to grow up too fast. "Yes," Warren said, "I am glad you came." Cale's shoulders relaxed, tension draining that Warren had not realized was there. "Can I tell you something?" the boy asked. "Of course. When we first came here, I hated you. I thought you would hurt us. I kept my knife ready every night to protect Mother." "I know." "You knew. I saw it. I would have done the same. But now—" Cale struggled with the words. "Now I think maybe you are trying to protect us, too. Not from danger outside, but from something else." What do you think I am protecting you from? From being alone, Cale said simply. Warren felt something catch in his throat. The wisdom of a 9-year-old cutting straight to truth. Your father, Warren said carefully, before he died. Did he tell you anything else? He told me to take care of Mother. He said she is strong, but she has been hurt. He said I should remember that strong people can still break if they carry too much alone. Your father was wise. He was scared too, Cale said quietly. At the end, when he knew he was dying, he cried sometimes, but he tried to hide it. Being scared of death does not make him weak. It makes him human. That is what Mother said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer. Then Cale yawned, the adrenaline of the nightmare finally fading. You should sleep, Warren said. Will you tell me something first, if I can? The people who died, the ones you said you did not help, were they like us? Warren's breath caught. Yes, they were Apache, a family, trying to survive a storm. And you said no when they asked for help. Yes. Why, it was the question Warren had been asking himself for 4 years. Because I was afraid, he said. Afraid of what might happen to me if I helped them. Afraid of breaking the law. Afraid of standing out. Afraid of all the wrong things. And they died, yes? Cale thought about this. If they came now, would you help them? Yes. Because of us. Because of them. Because of me. Because of everything I have learned about what matters and what does not. Warren paused. But yes, also because of you? Because you showed me that the cost of helping is always less than the cost of not helping. Cale nodded as if this made sense to him. Then he stood, wrapping the blanket tighter. Warren, yes, thank you for letting us stay. The boy went back to bed before Warren could respond. Warren sat alone in the lamplight for a long time after thinking about fathers and sons and the weight of expectations, thinking about fear and courage and the fine line between them, thinking about how a 9-year-old boy had just taught him something profound without even realizing it. Eventually he extinguished the lamp and went to bed. But sleep was still elusive. He lay in the darkness, listening to the house settle, listening to the wind outside, listening to the soft sounds of breathing from the storage room. 4 people under one roof. Such a simple thing, such a dangerous thing, such a necessary thing. Warren closed his eyes and waited for morning. The next day dawned clear and cold. Warren rose early as always, but found Naira already outside working with the horses. She moved among them with easy familiarity, checking hooves, running her hands along flanks, murmuring in Apache. The horses responded to her touch, calm and trusting. Warren watched from the barn door, not interrupting. After a while, Naira turned, having known he was there all along. They like you, Warren said. Animals sense intention. They know I mean no harm. I wish people were that simple. People are not simple because people lie, to others, to themselves. She finished with the last horse and moved to the fence, standing beside Warren, but not too close. Animals do not lie. Is that why you prefer them? I do not prefer them. I understand them. There is a difference. Warren nodded. They stood in companionable silence, watching the horses mill in the paddock. Then Warren said, "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask. I may not answer." "Your husband, Dakota, what was his family like?" Naira's expression shifted, became guarded. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I need to understand something. About the family I turned away. About whether it was my family." "Yes." Naira was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was measured. "My husband had many cousins. The name Dakota is common. It means friend to everyone. Parents give this name hoping their sons will be peacemakers. The family that came here 4 years ago, there was a man, a woman, a boy of maybe 5 years old. The man's name was Dakota. I learned that later when I tried to find out who they were. Where were they from? I do not know. They did not say, they just asked for shelter. I turned them away." Warren forced himself to continue. "The next morning I found them, dead, 3 miles from here. They had tried to reach the next ranch, but the storm was too strong. Naira closed her eyes briefly. How did the man die? First, I think, he was furthest from the others, like he had been trying to keep going to get help. And the woman curled around the child, trying to keep him warm. Did it work? No. Naira nodded slowly as if confirming something. That sounds like Nashota. My husband's cousin. His wife was Kimi. The boy was called Little Takota after his father. Warren felt the world tilt. It was your family. Yes, Naira's voice remained steady. But not my husband. My husband died in our camp, from sickness. I was with him. He died in my arms, not in the snow. I am sorry for your loss, and for the others. You have said this already. You do not need to say it again. But knowing it was your family, your husband's cousin, does it change anything? Naira turned to face him. You did not know who they were when you turned them away. You would have done the same if they were strangers. The wrong was the same regardless of their connection to me. But you stayed here, knowing what I did to your family. I did not know at first. I only knew that a man who had turned others away chose to help us. That meant something. And now that you know, Naira looked at him with those dark, penetrating eyes. Now I know that you are not the same man you were 4 years ago. I see it. In how you move, how you speak, how you look at my children. She paused. You carry guilt like a stone, but you use that stone to build something different. Not all men can do that. I do not deserve forgiveness. I did not offer forgiveness. I offered understanding. They are not the same thing. Warren absorbed this. Would you have stayed if you had known from the beginning? Naira considered the question seriously. I do not know. Maybe not. Maybe I would have let anger rule me. She looked toward the house where her children were. But now I am glad I did not know, because my children are safe, because for the first time in a long time I am not running, because I have learned that sometimes the person you need to trust is the one who learned from failing you. The words settled between them like snow. I still dream about them sometimes, Warren admitted. The family. I see the woman's face, the way she looked at me when I said no, not angry, just resigned, like she had expected it. That is the worst part, yes. Not that you caused suffering, but that you confirmed what she already believed about the world, that no one would help. Yes. Do you know what I dream about? Warren shook his head. I dream that when my husband was dying, I felt relief, because I was tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of watching him weaken while pretending to be strong. Naira's voice remained steady, but Warren heard the pain beneath it. He died, and part of me thought now I can rest. But then the soldiers came, and I had to run again, and the relief became guilt. Exhaustion is not a sin. I know that here. Naira touched her head. But here, she touched her heart. Here I still feel like I betrayed him, by being relieved when he died. You did not betray him. You survived. He would have wanted that. How do you know what he would have wanted? Because if he was the kind of man you married, he would have wanted you to live, not to suffer. Naira looked away, blinking rapidly. Warren gave her space, pretending to watch the horses. After a moment she spoke again. When we first came here, I told myself it was temporary, just until spring, just until we were strong enough to keep running. And now I do not know what I tell myself, because every day we stay, it becomes harder to imagine leaving. My children laugh here. They learn here. Kael reads now. Did you know that he reads before bed every night? Dana draws pictures of this place like it is home. She turned back to Warren. How do I leave when they have finally stopped being afraid? Maybe you do not have to leave. There is always a price for staying. Ruth made that clear. People will not accept us. Some people will not. Others might. We do not know until we try. And if they come with torches and anger, if they demand we go, what then? Warren had no answer, not one that would satisfy. They stood in silence as the sun climbed higher, melting the frost from the fence posts, turning the snow to brilliant white. Finally, Naira said, "Tell me about you. Not about the family you failed. About before that. Why are you here alone? That is a long story." "We have time." So Warren told her, not everything, but enough. About growing up in a family that valued strength over kindness. About joining the territorial militia because it seemed like the right thing to do. About seeing things in battle that changed how he understood right and wrong. About coming home to find his parents had died while he was gone. About inheriting this ranch and not knowing what to do with it. About slowly pushing everyone away until there was no one left to push. About 4 years of silence and routine and the slow realization that he had built a prison instead of a sanctuary. Naira listened without interrupting. When he finished, she nodded. "So we are the same," she said. "How? We both ran. You ran from people. I ran from soldiers. But both of us were running from the same thing, from a world that hurt us and we could not fix. And now we stop running, at least for a while." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Warren started to move back toward the barn. As he passed Naira, their hands brushed. Just a moment of contact, fingers touching in the space between them. Both froze. Neither pulled away immediately. Warren looked down at their hands, almost touching, felt the warmth radiating from her skin, felt something shift in his chest, something that had been frozen for a very long time, beginning to thaw. Naira pulled back first, but slowly. Her eyes met his, wide, uncertain. "I should check on the children," she said. "Yes." She walked toward the house. Warren watched her go, watched the way she moved, watched until she disappeared through the door. Then he stood alone in the cold morning air, staring at his hand as if it belonged to someone else. 4 years of touching nothing. No one. And now this brief moment of human contact that had felt like lightning. Warren shook his head, trying to clear it. This was not the time. There were too many complications, too many dangers, too much at stake. But his hand still tingled where her fingers had touched his. Inside the house, Naira leaned against the closed door, breathing carefully. She had not expected that. The touch, the electricity of it, the sudden awareness of Warren, not as a man who had helped her, but as a man full stop. It had been so long since she had thought of anyone that way. Since Dakota died, she had not allowed herself to think about men, about touch, about anything beyond survival. But now there was this. She looked down at her own hand, flexing the fingers that had touched his. "Mother," Cale's voice from the storage room. "Are you well?" Naira composed herself quickly. "Yes, I am well." She went to her children, pushing the moment aside. There would be time to think about it later, or perhaps it was better not to think about it at all. The day passed in the usual rhythm of work and meals and quiet evenings, but something had shifted, something subtle but undeniable. Warren and Naira found themselves aware of each other in new ways. The space between them felt charged. They moved around each other carefully, like dancers learning a new pattern. Kyle noticed. Children always notice. That evening, after dinner, after Naira had taken Dina to bed, the boy approached Warren where he sat reading. "You like my mother?" Cale said. Not a question. Warren looked up, startled. "What? You like her? The way a man likes a woman?" "Cale, I do not think—" "It is all right," the boy said seriously. "My father has been dead for many months. Mother is allowed to be happy. I am not. We are not." "Not yet," Kyle said with the wisdom of someone far older than 9. "But maybe someday, if you are brave enough." He went to bed, leaving Warren stunned in his chair. Out of the mouths of children indeed. Warren tried to return to his book, but the words swam meaninglessly on the page. He thought about Naira in the barn, about her hand touching his, about the look in her eyes. He thought about possibility, about what could be if the world were simpler, if circumstances were different, if he were braver. He was still thinking when he heard the horse approaching outside. Warren stood instantly alert. Visitors at night were never good news. He reached for his rifle, checked the load, and moved to the door. Through the window he could see two riders approaching. One he recognized as Ruth Calloway. The other wore a badge that caught the moonlight. Warren opened the door, stepped onto the porch. Ruth and the lawman dismounted. The man was tall, older, with gray hair and a face lined by years of making hard decisions. "Warren Hale," the man asked. "Yes?" "I am Marshal Duncan Cole. May we speak inside?" Warren's grip tightened on the rifle. "Depends on what you want to speak about." "About the Apache woman and children sheltering here, about the trouble that is coming, and about what we might be able to do to prevent it." Warren looked at Ruth. She met his eyes steadily. "He is here to help," she said quietly. "Let him speak." Warren considered, then stepped aside. They came into the house. Naira appeared in the doorway of the storage room, Cale behind her. She saw the marshal's badge and went very still. Marshal Cole removed his hat. "Ma'am, I am not here to arrest anyone. I am here to warn you." "Warn about what?" Warren asked. Cole settled into a chair that Warren had not offered. "There is sentiment building in town against Apache. Several families lost people in the raids last year. There is talk of petitions, of forcing all Apache to move to the reservation or further south." "This is my land," Warren said. "I can employ who I want." "Legally, yes. But law and sentiment are not always the same thing." Cole looked at Naira. "They know you are here, ma'am. Word travels. And they are organizing. In 3 days, a group will come here to verify the reports and likely demand your removal." Naira's face remained impassive, but Warren saw her hand move to touch Kael's shoulder, protective. "What can we do?" Warren asked. "Limited options," Cole said. "She could leave voluntarily. Go to the reservation." "No," Naira said flatly. "I understand. Then there is the matter of legal protection." "What kind of protection?" Cole looked uncomfortable. "If she were married to you, legally married, wife of a white citizen, it would be much harder to force removal. Not impossible, but harder. I could argue the law on your side." The words landed like stones in still water. Warren stared at the marshal. "You are suggesting a marriage of convenience. I am suggesting a legal maneuver that might save this woman and her children from being forcibly relocated to a place where statistically they have a poor chance of survival. That is not a real marriage." "No," Cole agreed, "but it is a real solution. Or it might be." Naira had not moved, had not spoken. Warren looked at her but could not read her expression. "I will think about it," Warren said. "You have until the day after tomorrow. That is when they are coming." Cole stood. "For what it is worth, Warren, I think you are doing the right thing helping her. But the right thing is not always the safe thing. You should consider that." He left with Ruth, who paused at the door. "Think hard about this, Warren," she said quietly. "Marriage, even a legal fiction, is not something to enter lightly." Then they were gone. Warren closed the door and turned to find Naira staring at him. "You do not have to do this," she said. "I know. I will not ask it of you. I know that too." They looked at each other across the small room. Cale watched them both, saying nothing. "What do you want to do?" Warren asked. "I want my children to be safe. I want to stop running. I want—" She stopped herself. "It does not matter what I want. It matters to me." Naira met his eyes, held them. "Then I want to stay, but not if it costs you more than you can afford to give. Let me worry about the cost. This is not your burden to carry. Maybe I want to carry it." The air between them felt electric again, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Kael cleared his throat. "I think you should marry her," he said simply. "Then we can all stay. Then we can be a family." "Kael," Naira said sharply, "this is not for children to decide." "But it is for children to want," the boy said. "And I want to stay. Dina wants to stay. We are tired of running." Naira looked at her son, and Warren saw her composure finally crack, saw the exhaustion beneath the strength, the fear beneath the pride. "Go to bed, Kael," she said softly. "Your mother needs to think." The boy obeyed reluctantly. Warren and Naira stood alone in the lamplight. "I will not force you," Warren said. "Whatever you decide, I will support. If you want to leave, I will give you supplies and directions to safe places. If you want to stay, we will find a way to make it work." "And marriage. You would actually do that, tie yourself legally to a woman you barely know. I know you well enough. You know I can work. You know I am honest. You do not know if I snore or talk in my sleep or have terrible habits that will drive you mad in 6 months." Despite everything, Warren almost smiled. "I am willing to risk it." Naira shook her head. "You are an unusual man, Warren Hale." "I will take that as a compliment." She walked to the window, looked out at the darkness. "If we do this, if we marry on paper, what would you expect from me?" "Expect? A wife has duties, obligations. I would expect nothing beyond what we already have. You work. I provide shelter. The only thing that changes is a piece of paper that says you have legal protection. And if I wanted more than that," the question hung in the air. Warren's heart beat faster. "What do you mean?" Naira turned to face him. "I mean that I am tired of being alone. I am tired of being afraid. I am tired of thinking of myself as just a mother and a worker and nothing else." She took a breath. "If we are to do this thing even as a legal fiction, I would rather it be honest. I would rather we both admit what is happening here." "What is happening here?" "You know what is happening. I see how you look at me, how you found reasons to be near me when you work, how your hand trembled when it touched mine this morning." Warren swallowed. "Naira, I feel it too," she said quietly. "I did not want to. I told myself it was gratitude or convenience or just human connection after so long alone, but it is more than that, and we both know it. This is happening very fast. I have been running for months. Fast is all I know." She stepped closer. "But I do not want to run from this. I want to choose it. If we marry even for legal protection, I want it to be real. Eventually. If you want that too." Warren looked at her. Really looked. Saw the vulnerability in her eyes. Saw the courage it took to say these words. Saw the possibility of something he had not allowed himself to imagine in years. "I want that," he said. "More than I should. More than is wise." "Then we have an answer. We barely know each other. We have time to learn, if we choose to take it." Warren reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She did not. He took her hand, properly this time, deliberately. "This is complicated," he said. "Everything worth doing is. There will be talk, judgment, difficulty. There already is. Your children want this. You heard Cale. Children are smarter than we give them credit for." Warren held her hand, felt the calluses that matched his own, felt the warmth and strength, felt the possibility of not being alone. "Tomorrow," he said, "we will go to town. We will speak to the marshal. We will make this legal and real, and whatever happens after, we will face it together." Naira nodded. Together. They stood in the lamplight. Hands joined two people who had been running from different things, finding themselves in the same place at the same time. Outside, the wind had died down. The stars were bright. The world was quiet. And inside a small ranch house in the middle of nowhere, something new was beginning. Something that felt fragile and precious and worth protecting. Something that felt like hope. Morning came too quickly, and not quickly enough. Warren had not slept. He lay in his bed listening to the house breathe around him, listening to the soft sounds of Naira settling her children for the night, listening to the question that hung in the air between them like smoke. Marriage. Not the marriage of romance novels or church weddings with families gathered. A marriage born of necessity, of legal protection of two people trying to find solid ground in a world that kept shifting beneath their feet. But also, if he was honest with himself, something more. He had felt it when their hands touched, had seen it in her eyes when she spoke of wanting something real, had heard it in his own voice when he admitted he wanted it too. The question was not whether to marry her. The question was whether he had the courage to make it mean something. When dawn finally broke, Warren rose and dressed with care. Not his work clothes, but the better shirt he kept for town, the coat that was not patched. He shaved something he had not done in weeks and looked at himself in the small mirror. A man of 36 looking back, older than his years in some ways, younger in others. A man who had spent 4 years learning the wrong lessons and was now trying to unlearn them. He stepped into the main room and found Naira already awake. She wore the same dress she had arrived in, mended now cleaner. Her hair was pulled back, but not hidden. She looked at him, and he looked at her, and something passed between them that needed no words. "I did not sleep," she said. "Neither did I. I kept thinking about all the reasons this is foolish." "Did you find any good ones?" "Many, but none that matter more than keeping my children safe." Warren nodded. "I have been thinking, too, about what this means, what we are agreeing to. A marriage of convenience, of legal protection." "Is that all it is?" Naira held his gaze. "I do not know yet, do you?" "No, but I know what I want it to become, if you will let it." "And what is that?" "Something real, something honest. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, when we have earned it." Naira's expression softened. "That is a good answer, Warren Hale." They prepared to leave for town. Cale and Dina would stay behind, hidden in the house, with instructions to bolt the door and not answer for anyone. It was a risk, but less of a risk than bringing them where hostile eyes might see. Cale had hugged his mother before they left, whispering something in Apache that Warren did not understand, but that made Naira's eyes fill with tears. The ride to town took 2 hours through snow that was finally beginning to thin. Spring was coming, Warren thought. Change was coming, whether they were ready or not. Marshal Cole met them at his office, a small building attached to the general store. Ruth was there, too, standing in the corner like a witness at a trial. "You have decided?" Cole asked. "Yes," Warren said. "We will marry. Today, if possible." Cole studied them both. "You understand this is a serious commitment. Even if entered into for practical reasons, marriage is binding under law." "We understand," Naira said quietly. "And you, ma'am, you enter this freely of your own choice." "I do." "No coercion. The only thing forcing me is the need to protect my children. But this man," she glanced at Warren, "he has given me nothing but respect and choice. If I marry him, it is because I choose to." Cole nodded slowly. "Very well. I can perform the ceremony now. It will be legal and binding. I will file the papers today." He pulled out a worn book, opened it to the relevant page, and gestured for them to stand before him. Warren and Naira stood side by side, not touching, not yet. Ruth moved to stand beside Naira. "You will need a witness," she said gruffly. "I suppose I can serve." The ceremony was brief, perfunctory. Cole read the required words in a voice that suggested he had done this many times in many contexts, not all of them happy. "Do you, Warren Hale, take this woman as your lawful wife?" Warren looked at Naira, really looked, saw the strength in her face, saw the fear she was hiding, saw the hope she was trying not to feel. "I do," he said clearly. "And do you, Naira, take this man as your lawful husband?" Naira's voice was steady. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, by the territory of New Mexico, I pronounce you husband and wife." Cole closed the book. "That is it. You are married." No ring, no kiss, no celebration. Just two people standing in a small office having made a choice that would change everything. Ruth stepped forward and did something unexpected. She embraced Naira briefly, awkwardly, as if remembering how. "Be careful," she whispered. "Both of you. What you have started will not be easy." Then she left. Cole handed Warren the marriage certificate. "Keep this safe. You may need it sooner than you think. The group coming tomorrow. They will come, but now you have legal ground to stand on. I will be there. I will remind them of the law." He paused. "But the law only goes so far when men have anger in their hearts." Warren folded the certificate carefully and placed it in his coat. "Thank you, Marshal." "Do not thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and everyone is still alive." They rode home in silence. The weight of what they had done settled over them like snow, not uncomfortable, but present, real, undeniable. Halfway back, Warren pulled his horse to a stop. Naira stopped as well, looking at him questioningly. "I need to say something," Warren said. What we did today, the marriage. I know it was for legal reasons, for protection, but I want you to know something." "What is that?" "I will honor it, not just the paper, the promise. I will stand by you and your children. I will protect you. I will provide for you, and I will not ask anything of you that you are not ready to give." Naira's eyes glistened. "That is twice now you have promised me respect. Not many men would do that." "Then you have known the wrong men. Perhaps I have known the wrong men until now." They continued home. When they arrived, Kyle threw open the door and ran to his mother. Dina followed, more slowly, clutching a drawing she had made. "What happened?" Kyle demanded. "Did you do it? Are you married?" Warren pulled out the certificate and showed it to him. Kyle stared at the paper, his eyes wide. Then he turned to Warren. "Does this mean you are our father now?" The question hung in the cold air. Warren knelt down to be at eye level with the boy. "I am your mother's husband. That is what the paper says. Whether I am your father is something you will decide. Not me, not your mother. You." Kyle thought about this. Then he stuck out his hand. "Then I will decide later. But for now we can be family, on trial." Warren shook the small hand solemnly. "On trial. That is fair." Dina approached shyly and handed Warren her drawing. It showed 4 stick figures standing in front of a house. A tall man, a woman, a boy, a small girl. At the top, in careful letters, someone had helped her spell family. Warren looked at the drawing for a long moment, feeling something crack inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for 4 years beginning to thaw. "Thank you, Dina," he said softly. "This is beautiful." She smiled and ran back to her mother. That night, after the children were asleep, Warren and Naira sat by the fire. The silence between them was different now, weighted with new meaning. Finally, Naira spoke. "Where will I sleep?" It was a practical question with complicated implications. "Where would you like to sleep?" "I do not know. We are married now, but not really married, so I do not know what is appropriate." Warren stood and went to his room. He returned with blankets and a pillow. "I will sleep out here," he said. "You and the children take the storage room as before. When you are ready for something different, you will tell me. Until then, nothing changes except a piece of paper." Naira looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "You are a very patient man. I am a man who has learned that rushing things breaks them." She stood and walked to him, stood close enough that he could feel the warmth from her body. Then she did something that surprised them both. She kissed his cheek, softly, briefly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving me time, for giving me choice, for being different." She went to the storage room before he could respond. Warren stood alone by the fire, one hand touching his cheek where her lips had been. It was not much, just a small gesture, but it felt like everything. He made his bed by the fire and lay down staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow, about the men who would come, about the confrontation that was inevitable, about the choice he would have to make when anger met law, and somewhere in between stood a family he was only beginning to understand he wanted. Sleep came eventually, thin and restless. Morning would bring answers, whether he was ready for them or not. The men came at midday. Warren saw them from a distance, 5 riders moving slowly through the thinning snow. He had been expecting them, had prepared as much as one could prepare for something like this. Naira stood beside him on the porch. He had told her to stay inside to hide. She had refused. "If they are coming for me, I will face them," she said. "I am done hiding." Kyle and Dina were inside behind the locked door. Warren had given Kale his old hunting knife. not to fight, just to feel less helpless. The riders approached and stopped 20 feet from the house. They made no move to dismount. Marshal Cole was among them as promised. The others Warren recognized from town, farmers mostly, men who had lived in this territory for decades, men who had lost people to Apache raids or knew people who had. The man who seemed to be their leader was named Hank Porter. Warren knew him slightly, a widower whose wife and daughter had died in a raid 2 years prior, a man with reasons to hate. "Warren Hale," Hank said. His voice was not hostile, but it was not friendly either, just flat, factual. "Hank, we heard you have an Apache woman here, and children." "I do. We would like to see them." "Why?" "Because there is concern in the community, about safety, about propriety, about the law," Marshal Cole spoke up. "Warren has every right to employ whoever he chooses on his land." "Employ?" Hank repeated. "Is that what this is?" Warren felt Naira tense beside him. He resisted the urge to step in front of her. "She is my wife," Warren said clearly, "legally married as of yesterday." Marshal Cole performed the ceremony. Silence. The men looked at each other, at Cole, at Warren, at Naira. Hank's face had gone still. "You married her?" "Yes." "An Apache?" "A woman, a person, yes." One of the other men, a farmer named Dutch, spat into the snow. "That is not legal. You cannot marry them like they are white folk." "The law says otherwise," Cole interjected. "I have the certificate, signed and filed. Mrs. Hale is a legal wife with all the protections that entails." Mrs. Hale. The name sounded strange to Warren's ears, but also right. Hank dismounted slowly. The others followed his lead. They stood in a rough semicircle, not threatening exactly, but not welcoming either. "Warren," Hank said, "you know what they did, the Apache. You know the lives they took. I know what some Apache did. I also know what some white men did. Killing is not unique to one people. My wife, my daughter, killed in a raid 3 years ago, burned in our home while I was in town getting supplies." Hank's voice cracked. "I came home to ashes and bodies." Warren felt the weight of that pain. "I am sorry for your loss, Hank. Truly, no man should have to endure that." "Then why do you shelter them? Why do you protect the people who killed my family?" "She did not kill your family." "How do you know?" It was Naira who answered. She stepped forward, and Warren felt his heart stop, but he did not pull her back. "I know," Naira said, "because 3 years ago I was not raiding. I was in my camp grieving my own husband who had just died. I was trying to keep my children alive through winter. I was doing the same thing your wife was doing, living, trying to survive." Hank stared at her. "You speak English?" "I speak 3 languages, Apache, Spanish, English. Does that surprise you?" "You are Apache." "I am a woman. I am a mother. I am a widow who lost her husband just as you lost your wife. I am a person who has spent months running from soldiers, from hunger, from men who see me as a problem to be solved instead of a human being to be respected." Her voice remained steady. "I did not kill your family. I am sorry they are dead. I am sorry you carry that pain, but I will not accept blame for something I did not do simply because I share blood with people who hurt you." The men shifted uncomfortably. This was not what they had expected. They had expected defiance or fear or silence, not eloquence, not dignity. Hank looked at her for a long moment. "You lost your husband." "Yes." "To what? Sickness. He died slowly while I could do nothing but watch." "And your children are inside, afraid, wondering if today is the day they lose another home." Hank closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something had changed. "How old are they?" 9 and 6. "My daughter was 7 when she died." The words hung in the air between them, a bridge of shared pain. Naira's voice softened. "Then you know what it is to love a child, to want them safe, to be willing to do anything to protect them." "Yes, that is all I am doing, protecting my children. Warren gave us shelter when we would have died in the snow. He gave us work. He gave us dignity. And now he has given us legal protection by making me his wife." She paused. I do not ask you to like me. I do not ask you to trust me. I only ask that you let my children live without fear." Dutch spoke up, his voice hard. "Pretty words. But words do not change what you are." "You are right," Naira said. "Words do not change what I am. But what am I? I am Apache. I am also a widow, a mother, a worker, a wife. I am all of these things. Which one matters most to you?" "The first one," Dutch said flatly. "Then you have decided who I am before knowing me. And there is nothing I can say that will change your mind." She turned to go inside. "Wait," Hank said. Naira stopped, but did not turn around. "Show me your children." "Why, because I want to see them. I want to see what I am judging." Naira looked at Warren. He gave the smallest nod. She opened the door and called softly in Apache. After a moment, Cale emerged, knife hidden, but Warren knew it was there. Dina followed, clutching her brother's hand. The men stared at the children. Cale stared back, his chin raised in defiance that would have made his mother proud. Dina half hid behind her brother, her eyes wide. "They are afraid of you," Hank observed. "They have reason to be," Naira said. "They have watched soldiers burn their home. They have watched their mother go hungry so they could eat. They have learned that men with anger are dangerous. So yes, they are afraid." Hank crouched down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. He looked at Cale. "What is your name, boy?" Cale glanced at his mother. She nodded. "Cale, it means brave." "Are you brave?" "I try to be." "What are you brave about?" "Protecting my mother and sister. Learning new things. Not running away even when I am scared." Hank nodded slowly. "Those are good things to be brave about." He looked at Dina. "And you, little one?" Dina did not answer, just held up her drawing, the one of the family. Hank took it gently, studied it. "Did you make this?" A small nod. "It is very good." "Is this your family?" Another nod. "The tall man, that is Warren." "Yes." "And he is good to you." Dina looked at Warren, then back at Hank. "He gave me paper and charcoal. He lets me draw. He does not yell. Such simple things. Such low standards born of hard experience." Hank handed the drawing back carefully. He stood and faced Warren. "I came here angry," he said. "I came here ready to demand you send them away. To remind you of the raids and the deaths and all the reasons to keep our distance from Apache. And now I see two children who are afraid of me. Children who did not raid my home. Children who just want to be safe." He paused. "I see a woman who speaks like she has been educated, who carries herself with pride, who loves her children the way my wife loved our daughter." "Does that change anything?" Warren asked quietly. Hank was silent for a long time. The other men waited, watching their leader. "It should not," Hank said finally. "It should not change anything, but it does." He turned to his companions. "We came here to verify reports. We have verified them. Warren has married an Apache woman. She and her children live here. It is legal, according to the marshal. It is happening on private land. We have no grounds to demand anything." Dutch started to protest. Hank cut him off. "No, we have no grounds. This man lost his whole family. He has lived alone for years. If he chooses to marry and bring children into his home, that is his business, not ours." "But they are Apache," Dutch insisted. "They are people," Hank said with sudden heat. "They are children and a widow and a man trying to make a family. Yes, they are Apache, but that is not all they are. And if I cannot see past my own pain to recognize their humanity, then my pain has won. It has made me into something worse than the people who took my family from me." He looked at Naira. "You can stay. I will not stand in your way. More than that, if anyone gives you trouble, you send word to me. I will speak for you." Naira's eyes widened in surprise. "Why would you do that?" "Because my daughter would want me to. Because she believed every person deserved kindness. Because she died believing the world was good, and I will not let her death make me into someone who proves her wrong." There were tears on his face now. Naira stepped forward and did something remarkable. She touched his arm gently. Just a moment of human connection. "Your daughter was wise," she said softly, "and you honor her by choosing to be the man she believed in." Hank nodded, unable to speak. The men mounted their horses, all except Dutch, who looked disgusted but outvoted. They rode away slowly, their shadows long in the afternoon sun. Ruth, who had been watching from a distance, approached on foot. "That went better than I expected," she said. Warren let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "Yes." Ruth looked at Naira. "May I speak with you privately?" Naira glanced at Warren, then nodded. The two women walked toward the barn. Warren watched them go, wondering what Ruth wanted to say. But he had learned that some conversations were not his to hear. Cale tugged on his sleeve. "Are we safe now?" "Safer than we were, but safe is something we build day by day, not something we achieve once and keep forever." "That is a complicated answer." "It is a true answer." Dina had already gone back to her drawing, adding to the picture. Warren saw that she was drawing flowers now around the edges of the family. Spring flowers, hope growing from winter ground. In the barn, Ruth faced Naira. "I owe you an apology," Ruth said without preamble. "For what?" "For my reaction when I first saw you. For my judgment. For assuming things about you based on what you are instead of who you are." Naira studied the older woman. "You lost someone." "To Apache." "My husband. 10 years ago, not in a raid. In a skirmish when he was serving as militia." Ruth's voice was steady but sad. "I have carried anger about it for a long time, used it as a shield, as an excuse not to see Apache as people. And now I see you with your children. I see how hard you work. I see how Warren looks at you and how you look at him. I see something I thought I would never see again after my husband died." "What is that?" "A family beginning. Two people choosing each other despite the world telling them not to." Ruth paused. "I was married for 30 years. I know what real partnership looks like, and I see the beginning of it here. We are still learning each other. That is what marriage is. Continuous learning, continuous choosing." Ruth reached into her pocket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. "I want you to have this." She unwrapped it to reveal a simple ring, gold band worn smooth with age. "This was my mother's wedding ring," Ruth said. "She gave it to me when I married. I have no children to pass it to, and I have been carrying it like a relic instead of letting it serve its purpose. I cannot accept this. You can, and you will. Because you are married now, and you should have a ring. Because Warren is a good man who deserves to have a wife who wears a visible symbol of their commitment. Because I want to give it to you." Naira took the ring with trembling fingers. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 10 years is a long time to carry hate. Because I am tired. Because I saw your daughter's drawing, and it reminded me that families come in all forms, and they all deserve to be celebrated." Ruth's eyes glistened. "Because if my husband were here, he would tell me to stop being a stubborn fool and start being the kind of neighbor he always believed I could be." Naira slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are welcome. Now come. Let us go back before the men think we are plotting something." They returned to find Warren teaching Cale how to properly oil a saddle. The boy was listening intently, asking questions, fully engaged in a way he had not been before. Ruth saw this and smiled. "It begins," she said quietly to Naira, "the healing, the building, the becoming. Will it be hard? Always, but less hard than being alone." That evening, after Ruth had left and the children were in bed, Naira showed Warren the ring. He took her hand gently, looked at the simple gold band on her finger. "Ruth gave you this." "Yes, it was her mother's." "It looks right on you." "Does it?" Naira looked at her hand as if seeing it for the first time. "I have never worn a wedding ring before. My husband and I married in the Apache way. There were no rings. Do you want one? I could try to get one in town." "No, this is perfect. It carries history, love, survival." She looked up at him. "Like us." Warren smiled, actually smiled, something he had not done freely in 4 years. "Like us," he agreed. They stood close together in the lamplight, not quite touching, but not quite separate either. "Warren," Naira said softly, "today, when those men came, you stood beside me, not in front of me, beside me. That is where partners stand. Yes." She looked at the ring again. "I think I am ready." Ready for what? To make this real. Not just legally, emotionally. I am ready to stop being your employee who happens to be your wife and start being your wife who happens to work alongside you. What does that mean? It means I am done sleeping in the storage room. It means I am ready to share your space and your life and whatever comes next. She met his eyes. "If you will have me." Warren's heart was pounding. "Are you certain?" "I am terrified, but yes, I am certain." He took her hand, the one with the ring. "Then we do this slowly. We do this right. We give ourselves time to be sure. We have time. We have all the time we need." That night, Naira moved her things into Warren's room, not dramatically, just quietly while the children slept. She stood in the doorway looking at the space that would now be shared. Warren stood beside her. "We do not have to rush anything. I know. We can take this one day at a time. I know that too." She turned to him. "Kiss me." "What? We are married. We have decided to make this real. So kiss me. Let us start the way we mean to continue, with honesty and choice." Warren cupped her face gently, gave her every opportunity to change her mind. She did not. When their lips met, it was like the first thaw of spring, slow, inevitable, full of promise. They pulled apart, breathing carefully. "That was nice," Naira said. Warren laughed, actually laughed. "Nice. I am out of practice. Give me time to find better words." They lay down together that night, fully clothed on top of the blankets. Just being close, just being together. As Naira drifted toward sleep, she murmured, "Warren." "Yes. Thank you for seeing me, not just what I am, but who I am." "Thank you for the same." Outside, the last of the winter snow was melting. Water dripped from the eaves. The ground was beginning to soften. Spring was coming. And inside a small ranch house in the middle of nowhere, 4 people who had been running from different things finally stopped. They had found what they were looking for. Not perfection, not rescue, not escape, but something better. They had found home, 1 year later. The ranch looked different, better. Fences repaired and painted. Garden beds dug and ready for planting. New shutters on the windows. Signs of care and attention and people who planned to stay. Warren and Naira worked side by side preparing the fields for spring planting. They moved in sync, a rhythm born of daily partnership. Cale was taller now, growing into the man he would become. He helped with the heavy work, proud of his increasing strength. His reading had improved so much that he now read to Dina before bed. Dina chattered constantly, now her early silence replaced by endless questions and observations. She drew pictures that covered the walls of the house, pictures of horses and flowers and family. Ruth visited, often bringing food and gossip from town. She and Naira had become friends, 2 strong women who had learned that strength could be shared instead of hoarded. Hank Porter stopped by occasionally, always on some pretext, borrowing tools, asking advice about crops. But really, Warren thought just checking to make sure they were still there, still thriving. Proof that his choice to let go of hate had been the right one. Other families had followed Hank's example. Not all. Some still kept their distance, still disapproved. But enough had accepted that Naira and her children were part of the community now, part of the fabric of this place. On this particular spring morning, Warren and Naira stopped for water. They stood on the hill overlooking their land. "Do you ever think about leaving?" Warren asked. "No, do you?" "Not anymore." "What changed?" "I stopped thinking of this place as where I hide and started thinking of it as where I live." Naira leaned against him, comfortable with the contact now. "The children are happy here." "So am I. So am I." They watched Kyle teaching Dina how to throw a rope, the little girl laughing when she missed. "Warren," Naira said quietly, "I have something to tell you." He looked at her, saw something in her face. Joy, nervousness, hope. "What is it?" "I am with child, our child, coming in the autumn." Warren stared at her. Then he picked her up and spun her around, laughing like a man who had forgotten how heavy the world could be. When he set her down, they were both smiling. "Are you happy?" she asked. "I am terrified and thrilled and happy beyond words." "Good answer." They kissed there on the hill, two people who had found each other in the darkness and built something in the light. Kyle and Dina came running up, curious about the commotion. "What is happening?" Kyle demanded. Warren looked at Naira. She nodded. "You are going to be a brother again," Warren said. "In the autumn." Kale's eyes went wide. Then he grinned. "Really? Really?" Dina tugged on Warren's sleeve. "Will you be the baby's father?" "Yes. Real father, not trial father." Warren knelt down to her level. "Real father, to the baby and to you and Kale. If you will have me." Dina threw her arms around his neck. "Yes." Kale was more reserved, but he stuck out his hand. Warren shook it solemnly. "The trial period is over," Kale said. "You passed." They stood together on that hill, a family forged from loss and choice and daily commitment. Below them, the ranch spread out. Home. Not where they started, not where they expected to be, but exactly where they belonged. And as spring settled over the land, bringing warmth and growth and new life, four people who had learned what it meant to truly see each other stood together. Not perfect, not without challenges ahead, but together, always together. And that was enough. That was everything. The end.